All right. Amy Legion, how y'all doing today? The real true Legion, of course. Accept no invitations. Once again, hold on. Let me fix up. I screwed up something. Dang it. Before people catch it. I just gotta correct one little thing. One little teeny tiny thing. And sometimes you don't really notice you make a mistake. And it happens. I mean, I'm not perfect. Okay, let's see. There we go. Perfect. All right. All right, now back. Now, about a day or two ago, they had something called Back to the Beginning, Black Sabbath Back to the Beginning, right? It was a farewell, very last concert of Ozzy. And Ozzy did double duty because he did like a set of his stuff, and then at the very end, he did stuff with Black Sabbath, the reunion tour, right? A few closing songs, and then that would be it. It was a charity event. There's something that's going on that I'm not sure. Sharon Osbourne kicked the band off the tour because their manager insisted on being paid and making a profit for this, even though everything's supposed to be for charity, right? And I don't know. It was not disclosed who it was. When I find out who it is, I'll let you guys know. Kind of like that way. You know what I mean? Because this is about like it goes into like what my channel is like, what my Facebook group does: movies, food, and metal. Right? And very basic, very primal, very knowledgeable, very entertaining. Hopefully. Um, and the thing is, I was watching something. They had like the live sets on YouTube. I was watching some of them, and then like I something happened. A whole bunch of stuff happened. I was on Tanya's. I was like, well, I gotta get to doing this and stuff. I watched some more clips, and I didn't see everything. There was a whole bunch of bands. It was like essentially 10-hour concert. I'm sure they'll whittle it down like some. I don't know, 8 hours maybe. I don't know. And a whole bunch of bands playing, and there was a whole big set list. Usually, a band will play like 15 to 20 minutes sets. Then Ozzy played like two 30-minute sets, one with his songs and one with the Black Sabbath songs. I already covered the Black Sabbath portion like 2 days ago in this live stream. And there were a whole bunch of bands playing. No, my mistake was they had a whole bunch of full sets on there from that original recording from Mercury Studios, I guess. And I know John sent me a thing with Supergroup A with Lizzie Hale singing. I watched some of that. And I think all that stuff got copywritten by Mercury Studios. Now, some of the stuff's still on Facebook. And I didn't see every band playing. I watched a little bit of Supergroup A and Supergroup B. They're just a bunch of famous musicians teaming together to play Ozzy or Black Sabbath songs. And that's the thing with a set. Everyone had to play either Ozzy or Black Sabbath song along with their own stuff. And they had like Anthrax, Mastodon, Guns N' Roses. And boy, Axl Rose looks nothing like he used to look. I'm not the hugest Guns N' Roses fan, but I might watch it. Metallica, Tool, uh, Slayer, like Mastodon. And I watched some of those sets. I didn't see all of them. And I definitely wanted to see the Ozzy set. I did like a separate review of the Black Sabbath. I definitely want to do the Ozzy one too. Now, I will say a couple, as far as bands that she might have kicked off, they speculated Tool, but they ended up playing the band, playing in the on the concert. I think they played like 18 minutes. They did 3 songs. One had to be a Black Sabbath song. I think he did Hand of Doom, I think. I have to watch that one though. What else was there? Also, Iron Maiden was not one of the ones she kicked. That was just rumored. She said she's going to sell off the concert. She hasn't told yet. And also, Megadeth wasn't one because even Kelly said that was not them. Um, Anyways, Ozzy performance, while like Mastodon was really cool. Uh, he did Supernaut. Mastodons was a great performance. Or 15. I'm just talking about the band I saw. They were really good. Uh, like a like a 9 out of 10 for their performance. Next was Anthrax. They did Indians, and then they did Into the Void, which was an amazing song. They got one of the best Sabbath songs ever to play, and I give that a 10 out of 10. Next was of course Slayer. I watched Slayer's song set, and they did Wicked World. And that was really a different thing for them to pick, and it sounded great. I mean, that's more of a bluesy song. But if you listen to some of the Black Sabbath stuff, all the heavy stuff, there's a lot of bluesy type stuff in it, especially from the first album. I remember my dad kind of liked some of it. Like I had like this one computer a long time ago, loaded up with music. It was so big because I mean, it was like I could only have it in the kitchen. It was that big. And then, like my dad was always outside, so he'd always mention me being on the computer. But I would play some Black Sabbath, the bluesy parts. It's like there was something was like a little bit of a Stevie Ray Vaughan vibe was my dad liked that, he wanted big. I mean, I think he would like some of that music now. 'Cause I remember back then in the 70s, 80s, they were so reviled, and Ozzy was so reviled. They had a concert. I remember they said like if Ozzy said the mayor said if Ozzy says one swear word, he's gonna get arrested. And they say you didn't say any swear words or anything like that. Uh they say like my mom was like, I didn't know you like some of the bit half of that. Listen to that. I remember first Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, I was kids from school let me borrow stuff. That the Ozzy live that had him. I don't know. He spit something out of his mouth. He had something in his mouth. Still have no idea what that was. And he was like, uh, Blizzard of Oz, but Iron Man. Let me borrow that. And I remember buying Bark of the Moon. It was about werewolves and stuff. Dad let me buy that one. And my mom's like, oh, I didn't know you like said a bit of that like that. Very very snobbish, because she didn't understand me. I understand that metal was like a part of me. Always has been. Even the more extreme forms of metal. Uh and like Ozzy was like the main guy targeted for like Satanism and all this other stuff. Like they had the backward masking, they always talk about that. I remember getting in a fight with my mom because she was ignorant. They used to have she used to live in a record station called WREO, right? It was like an easy listening station, right? And he used to have these commercials that would have WREO in like big bold letters of someone walking out there and doing like a thing. Here are our WREO. We only listen to like peaceful music and easy listen to music. And then he said, the guy clearly said, and we never listen to Ozzy Osbourne, right? Around that time, that Bark of the Moon, and they were playing the song "So Tired" over and over and over again, Ozzy Osbourne album. I remember, man, they lied. What are you talking about? They said they didn't play Ozzy Osbourne. They're playing Ozzy Osbourne right now. But I was like, who cares? Who cares? I care. They lied. They don't do it. I'll tell your father on you. You know, I mean, it's just a huge fight. Just like I remember back in the 70s, I remember like they had a thing of like best movies and stuff, and they said Star Wars up for best film. She's like, no, it is, no, it is, no, it's not, no, no, it's right there. Oh, it's not, don't get smart, don't get smart. And she was always like that. She still is like that, right? Always argumentative, always snobbish, horrible, horrible person. And it's because of her that I went a lot to listen to a lot of that music. By me, I did get some, and then like whenever I got in the army, I bought all these albums to make up for all the shit that I wasn't allowed to listen to. So I built up my musical knowledge because of her snobbery, or her blasphemy, her hatred. And I remember getting like, well, my sister, like I said, we lived next door to Katie Chris, and her mom. Oh, I mean, her dad's still there. I think they separated, right? Her dad's still there. I think they had like a farm. I don't know what they have now, They had horses and stuff like that. And Dad set me aside and said, well, what's going to happen, son, is your sister's going to take horse riding lessons from Carol, right? And she's going to pay him $10 for a lesson, right? Like hour long lesson, whatever, what have you, hour and a half long over there. And we're gonna let you get, if you want to get a tape or an 8 track or an album, for that. That's okay. I do that. And this is before we had a VCR. I remember at Farmore, I remember getting like a couple things. I remember getting Mob Rules for Black Sabbath. So that was the first Sabbath album. I remember getting For Those About to Rock for AC/DC, right? And Bob was gonna get it for me. He said, "Wait, I want to see what these songs are." Like, I don't like the sound of these songs because they had like Injected Venom, Let's Get It Up. That was For Those About to Rock, and not long that's I don't like these songs. And then later on, um, I'll never forget. Later on, she's like, "You're not listening to AC/DC anymore." So why is that? They have an album. My friend said they have an album called "If You Want Blood, You Got It." And there's this cover. The guy stabbed himself with a guitar, and there's blood, and you're not allowed to listen to it anymore. Yeah, so that's the shit I had to put up with. And then they wonder, and then like same thing with horror films and stuff, and they wonder why I love horror films and metal so much now. They drove me to it. They weren't allowed to let me be. They weren't allowed to let me be a kid. Horrible, horrible woman. And my dad always kissed her ass. Anyways, so that's it about Ozzy. They were demonized and stuff. And then through the years, I remember they had when I was in Germany, I was a fan of Ozzy. I liked Ozzy. I liked Black Sabbath. And I would never allowed to listen to Black Sabbath till way later on. I remember had Mob Rules, and I remember buying it. Value C. They had the most unsabbathy sounding Black Sabbath album. It said Seven Sun, a 7-star featuring Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath. And it was just some side project Tony Iommi did, and they put like Warner Brothers put Black Sabbath on there. Try to sound nothing like Black Sabbath at all. Yeah, I didn't mind the album though. A lot of people hated it. I didn't mind the album. I love the one that Ian Gillan did, that Born Evil. And I remember they had a picture of like a baby that looked like Satan. I said, I know I'm not allowed to get this, so I didn't bother to ask. A lot of times I don't bother to ask. So they're just going to say no, growing up. And I remember like going up to the later, I think got laxed eventually. Going up to later 80s and stuff. I mean, before I went in the army. A year or two, I remember getting Paranoid. I was allowed to get that album from Sabbath, you know. And I mean, that was a slow start of my Evolution Sabbath. Because you would see, like, in comic books, you see, like, you buy, like, these patches and stuff you put on your denim jacket. They have stuff like Keep on Trucking. They always have Black Sabbath on there and all this stuff. I always wanted to know what they sounded like. I was always curious. And I think I knew more about Ozzy when he came into his private stuff than Sabbath. But I knew about Sabbath because of Mob Rules. How much I love that song from the movie Heavy Metal. Because I remember my friend Bruce Sokolowski, who let me borrow some of these albums. He let me borrow the Heavy Metal soundtrack that had Mob Rules on it. He let me borrow From the Inside the Alice Cooper thing that Tanya always surprised I know about. And then sadly, like I said, in like 90 or something like that, he burned to death in a fraternity, in a fire, this fraternity house fire. He burned to death, sadly. And that's how my friend, I remember talking to John about it, and he said, I don't know what I'm really talking about him because he said he always picked on John. I didn't know about that, though. I had other people he was always cool to me, which surprised the hell out of me. I don't think John ever really mentioned that, though. Anyways, a couple of days back, like I said, a whole bunch of famous musicians got together to do either a 15-minute to a half-hour gig. Usually it was like 15 minutes. And then the long people had the longest gigs were the super group. They were around like 41, 42, 45 minutes, And there were two super groups. about a bunch of people. The one was Billy Corgan, you know. Now they had black. Hold on, let me use the restroom real quick. And I'm back. Sorry, I had to take a break. I had to pee. Um, no, that's like my evolution of like Black Sabbath. And then when I was in the military, I was able to freely buy stuff without the scrutiny of like snobbish people, you know, who thought they were better. You're like, oh, you're not allowed to listen to horses, or you're not allowed to listen to heavy metal, you know, like that. But I prevailed. The Legion always prevails. Oh shit! I'm gonna turn off the phone. There we go. Um, and in the army, I remember getting like a bunch of Black Sabbath, like the older stuff. I never forget. I got in a fight with this guy, Garth, who thought he knew everything about music. He was laughing because he didn't know that Black Sabbath did an album called Technical Ecstasy, the last one they did with Ozzy, with like two robots in on like escalator, like looked like they're having like some virtual side. He would laugh and he said they didn't do that. Yeah, they did do that album. That song like it's all right. That I mean, Bill Ward did something that sound like some of the Beatles would do. And they did like Dirty Women on that. He laughed. They never did that. Just how they did too. And buying a bunch of Black Sabbath stuff, including like stuff that Tony Martin did, the newer Black Sabbath after the Born Evil came about, like buying Headless Cross and that the one right after the one with the X's, or I can't remember, a bunch of letters and stuff. I'm writing about buying that Fort Bragg. They were okay. I liked the Headless Cross album because I liked Headless Cross, The Devil and Daughter. That was really good. But that was Tony Martin. I didn't think he did a bad job. No one ever talks about him though, but I thought he did okay. And I didn't really, as far as the Ozzy stuff, I remember buying like, let's see, I remember buying like Diary of Madman, Blizzard of Oz. And I remember buying like, what was that? No Rest for the Wicked, a great album. And then he did a concert album called Just Say Ozzy. No one remembers. But I remember buying that. And I remember buying the No More Tears album when I was in Fort Dietrich, Maryland. No. Yeah, Fort Dietrich, Maryland. I bought that album. I like that album too. And then I really didn't By a lot. I mean, when I got out of the military, I didn't follow a lot of bands and much except for Guar and Cannibal Corpse. But I still bought some of those albums. Or I just would listen. There's some Ozzy I never bought that he still did stuff on. But I always thought Ozzy was great. The one great thing about Ozzy is he made ballads sound cool. Because growing up, I never really was big on ballads and stuff. I always thought they were like getting wimpy and stuff. Um, I remember my one friend, Michelle Dutka, and Jerry bought something called Metal Ballads. As I'm sure as hell will buy that. Um, and then every time, like when Metallica does song one, which I don't consider a ballad because it's too heavy, everyone thought they had to have like some type of ballad in their album and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It depends if it's good or not. But Ozzy always made every ballad cool. Everything he did cool. When he did So Tired with that orchestra, it sounded perfect. Mama I'm Coming Home was great. I mean, he made every ballad cool. Just his personality, his vocal abilities and stuff really showed through. And like in this concert right now, I'm talking about, he was sitting down the whole time. He had like a little tray next to him. He had like some breath spray, and some tea and some water that he did to help him sing and stuff. And he did a perfect job. I mean, he had like back probably. I guess he was had surgery, spinal surgery. He had like a tumor removed. He had Parkinson's disease. But his vocals were spot on and stuff. And sometimes when he spoke to the crowd, it was a little bit tough to understand. But his vocals were really spot on. He really channeled those really well. And like I said, this is his last performance. And there were people in the audience crying and stuff. And he started out with the song "I Don't Know." He then went to Mr. Crowley. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. I believe the set list right there. Set list for see set list. Okay, okay. Let's see set list. I believe I got the order of the songs right. I'm pretty sure. I just saw it. But the thing that sucked was I was watching on YouTube, right? On YouTube, it all said like copyright claim, Century Studios, or the people release that stuff. Um, how was that list at? Yeah, but I was like, because I was watching these on there, and I took a break. I should have watched all this stuff, and then I found this on YouTube. I mean, on Facebook, the performance that they recorded, the performance that you were supposed to see, the man with the most energy to it. If I'm going to watch others for the last time, I want to watch that one. There's still some set lists I want to watch. I believe it started with I Don't Know. Then Mr. Crowley came up, and then Jack Black did a great version of Mr. Crowley. I mean, pretty serious, and he tried to reenact, like the thing with the fringes on it. Tried to reenact the way he did it, but he did a really good job. I thought it was really cool with a younger group, a bunch of young musicians performing. They did a fantastic job. Instead of like something out of School of Rock, I guess. I never saw School of Rock. I probably should, because I believe in metal and rock and roll. I really do. Um, and it starts out with it goes with I Don't Know, the Mr. Crowley, the Suicide Solution, and then it got kind of sad with Zach Wild was playing in the crowd. I mean, on stage with him, and he didn't miss a beat. I mean, he was so good. Or I mean, he was like the replace for Randy Rhoads, which was a huge loss. And then speaking of that, he ended with he had "Mama, I'm Coming Home," a sad ballad, right? And everybody was singing along with that. And you see a lot of people with tears in their eyes, and he was tearing up a little bit. He teared up towards the end of the Black Sabbath set because he went from the Ozzy set. It's like a little bit later into the Black Sabbath set with the reunion of the complete band: Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward on drums, like Pickles the drummer. And he did "Mama, I'm Coming Home" was a fantastic rendering of the song. And then last but not least, he did "Crazy Train" with the like perfect tribute to also Randy Rhoads, because they showed like they have a screen above. They showed like him and Randy Rhoads playing, and you see Zach Wild and stuff at the bottom, and people were tearing up and said like Thanks for the bottom of my heart. I've been laying for 6 years. I wanted to do this last thing, this final performance. It was all for charity. I looked up ticket prices. I don't know how much they were at Wembley, at not Wembley Stadium, but that one stadium, Birmingham, in Birmingham, England. Uh, 42,000 people were there. And like I said, you could see it. I didn't know there were tickets. You could see it streaming for like $29.99. Or if you wanted to take the bundle, it came with a T-shirt. Now, I don't know if you got a digital copy of the show. It'd be nice if you did. You know, if you're, I mean, you're paying $30. Um, and the T-shirt came of like $70, $69.99. It all goes to charity and stuff. But as far as Ozzy's final performance, lots of tears and stuff. I mean, I choked up a little bit too. I mean, back what was vilified back in the 70s and 80s is celebrated today. It's classic rock and roll. I think it might not be the best thing in the world, but whenever like seeing him on what's that Decline of West Civilization Part 2, Mel, you're seeing him like doing what he was doing later on the Osbournes, like just being a regular guy, sitting down in the bathroom, drinking coffee and stuff around the table at breakfast time. It showed Ozzy in a different light, you know, very relatable. And then the Osbournes came out in the 90s on VH1. I want to say it was on MTV, it was on VH1. And I don't know, my aunt loved the show. I know I remember buying her a book. And Uncle Rick said, "She ain't got to read that." I read the book first, though, so I wouldn't waste my money. Um, and you saw them in a different light. I love that show, though. A couple of things were messed up, like, and you saw how bratty bratty, bratty their kids were. Um, and Sharon Osbourne went to do stuff like The Talk, and she still, like, supported Ozzy and stuff. There was rumors that Ozzy cheated on his wife with a hairdresser. I don't know how true those were. I know Kelly was really nasty, sent her death threats and stuff. Um, but no, I really liked it. I give that as a great performance for Ozzy. Sometimes when he would just talk to the crowd, there was like a thing where he talked like a minute or 2 minutes. It was kind of hard to understand what he was saying. But when he was singing in his element, he was like flawless. He's still flawless. I mean, really great music, immortalized for all time. The face of metal, heavy metal, you know, Black Sabbath. People talk about the Beatles. You know, they say the Beatles, like, I'm not a big Beatles fan. I know Miller's on that. I mean, you don't like the Beatles? Not really. They're okay. They're okay. That's not like the Beatles, the best band ever. Or like, then they went out to be the Rolling Stones, and then there was like a Beatles or Rolling Stones. And some people may pick the Rolling Stones. Me, it should be the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Black Sabbath. And I'll always pick Black Sabbath. That's my Beatles. That's the band I listen to over and over again. Not every album though, but I mean like Children of the Grave and stuff. And then someone did a really cool AI of Children of the Grave with all the monsters and zombies and vampires. That was really cool. But no, I give this the final performance of Ozzy Osbourne from back to the beginning. I said before, back to the basic, back to the beginning. Farewell concert. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was a 10 out of 10. I say a little hard to understand what there was like he talked for like a minute or two to the audience. It was a little bit hard to understand that. I understood everything else he said. But no, the singing was spot on. He didn't lose a beat. The great, like I said, the great thing about Ozzy is he made ballads cool, you know, and he has that voice that's just so incredibly infectious and likable, and gets you into the music, though, you know. Great musicians too. And then he said when he was fired from Black Sabbath, he said the best thing ever happened. But he was like having it rough for like the first couple of years, trying to get used to being fired from that band. And then he came back with Blizzard of Oz, and that became such a huge selling album. He went right back into, I guess, the spotlight. Even though back then I wasn't allowed to get that. Or Diary of a Madman, the way he looked on that cover, is that you're not allowed to get that. You're not like anything like that, you know. That's how it was, you know. Now I'll never forget that. You know, I'll never forget how snobbish my parents were. My dad was a little bit better. He let me get Bark of the Moon because of like werewolves and stuff in it. A little bit subdued. There was that. Speaking of the devil, that now the Force Fighter let me borrow. There was a scene where like there's something in his mouth that fell out. I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. And then my friend John, there was something called Sabbath fried bats or something like that. He'd eat like little fried bats in a thing. That was kind of funny. It was AI. But no, I give his performance a 10 out of 10. I thought he did an amazing job on Back to the Beginning farewell concert, Ozzy Osbourne, because in two sections. And all the bands, Metallica too, and then there was like Ozzy and then Black Sabbath. So, and then Ozzy took like a little break, but he was sitting in like this giant black throne with black bats with bat wings at the back of it, which was really cool. I thought it was a 10 out of 10. I thought it was a flawless performance. And what a way to leave. I mean, it's sad, but I mean, you know, he's getting up there. What a great farewell performance from Ozzy. I give it a 10 out of 10. So I hope you like this review in history. It's somewhat of a rant. So until next time, bye, please. Take care, Legion.